My 8-year-old daughter pointed at the bride. "Why did you put the baby in a locker? It's suffering." "Why are you putting the baby in the coin locker at my brother's wedding?" My 8-year-old daughter Hannah pointed at the bride, her head tilted in confusion. Hannah had a mysterious power. She had been right about many things she had seen in her dreams. So this statement must also be true. The wedding hall was abuzz with noise, and the bride, in her white wedding dress, looked down, her face pale. "Hey, why is that so cruel to the baby?" Hannah innocently asked the bride. "I am Lauren, a 33-years-old woman, living with my husband Keith and our 8-year-old daughter. Keith worked for an electric company and I worked part-time at a supermarket. We were just an ordinary household, or so we thought." Hannah had a mysterious power. I realized it when she said, "The baby in your tummy went to the sky, but Mommy, cheer up," at a time when I hadn't even told her I was pregnant, let alone that I had miscarried. "How did you know?" I asked her. Hannah smiled as if it were a matter of course. "I saw it in a dream." After that, I continued to be amazed by her. I didn't teach her anything about it, but I was convinced she had mysterious powers. However, I worried that if the world found out about Hannah, my daughter might be looked at strangely. "Hey, Hannah, what I dream of is a secret only for our family," I told her. If Hannah knew a lot of things, everyone would be surprised, wouldn't they? Since then, she has kept her promise, and no one noticed her abilities. At that time, the date of my brother Alice's wedding was set. Alice, 33 years old, was 2 years younger than me. Since our parents passed away early, my siblings and I relied on each other to get by. That's why his new beginning was particularly joyful for me. My brother worked for a prestigious company. He was a rising star within the company, rumored to be a future executive candidate. They had started talking about getting married about 3 years ago. The other woman, Teresa, quit her job shortly after she started living with Alice. At first, they planned to have a wedding around that time, but Alice suddenly decided to postpone the wedding because his younger brother was on a long-term business trip overseas. When Alice finally thought that he had returned to the U.S. after work, his fiancée went out again due to conflicting schedules. "Anyway," she said, "I want to go on a long trip with my friends at the end of my bachelorhood," Alice explained. So they just registered for the time being, but the date of the ceremony was finally decided. "Now it looks like I'm finally going to get it right. Congratulations." "I'm looking forward to it," I said, scooping my brother's head and congratulating him. He smiled shyly. However, I was a little worried about this marriage. Teresa was a selfish person, according to my brother's stories. She had never done any housework. When they started living together, Alice had to hire a housekeeper because she didn't want to clean the house. The housekeeper in charge was very polite in her work, and my brother liked her quite a bit. However, one day, Teresa suddenly said, "I don't like it," and told her to change to a new person. When I heard about it, I gave my opinion to my brother. "You don't have to listen to her for everything, do you? And the previous housekeeper was very nice, wasn't she?" "Yes, I want to fulfill Teresa's wishes in any way, but Teresa is positive and I feel very energized when I'm with her," my brother replied. In the end, my brother fired the first housekeeper and hired a new one, as Teresa said. Seemingly emboldened by this, Teresa temporarily returned during a visit and, timing it just right, convinced him to switch to a new phone, saying, "I want you to completely sever ties with your ex-girlfriend." In addition, she even forcibly moved to a high-end apartment. I was worried about their fate, but I didn't say anything because it was a problem between them. However, even in the wedding preparations, Teresa was quite selfish. This kind of situation added to my unease. The day of my brother's wedding arrived, his shining moment. Despite my concerns, the ceremony itself went smoothly. Then, in the middle of the reception, a corner was set up where attendees could ask various questions to the bride and groom. Everyone uniformly asked questions like, "What do you like about the bride?" or "What were your first impressions of each other when you first met?" It was all content that made me embarrassed when I was listening, and my brother seemed to be doing his best to answer with a bright red face. The bride seemed to be proud that she was able to marry the elite Alice and was quite happy to be interviewed by everyone. Then the moderator turned the microphone to my daughter on behalf of her relatives. "Is there anything you want to ask?" Hannah squirmed and turned away. "Hannah and I are like a family now, so ask me anything," Teresa said. Did my daughter come up with anything from Teresa's words? Suddenly, she looked up and pointed to the bride. "Why do you put your baby in a coin locker?" The sudden words caused a stir in the venue. "Because I saw it in my dream," Hannah explained. "It's my family, so I can ask you anything, right?" My daughter, who was confused by the reactions of the people around her, stared at me as if clinging to me. I'm sure my daughter had promised that the dream story would be a secret only for her family, but Teresa just said something like, "It's like a family, by the way." What does it mean to have a baby in a coin locker? What she saw in her dreams has never come off, and there is no reason for Hannah to tell such a lie. But what would happen if I were to say my daughter's dream is true? I felt like my head was going blank. When I look at it, Teresa is also looking down and looking like she's about to cry. The moderator immediately intervened. "This prophet says that the bride and groom will soon have a baby." Thanks to the MC's grand enlivening of the venue, the audience erupted in applause. The groom's younger brother was brushing his hair with his hands, and the bride was hiding her face with a table napkin. However, she probably felt that she was not getting what she wanted to say. She picked up the microphone again. "Sister, Teresa is on good terms with a blonde man, so why are you marrying my uncle?" Hannah tilted her head with a stunned look on her face. Then the calm air changed completely, and the place instantly froze. I hurriedly looked at the bride and saw her face turn pale. "What the hell are you talking about?" As soon as Teresa got up, she pulled out the flowers on the table, slammed them on the floor, and left the room, dragging the hem of her wedding dress. After that, she locked herself in the bride's waiting room and would not come out, no matter how much my brother and parents tried to persuade her. In the end, the ceremony was canceled in a hurry, and the attendees were asked to go home with only a meal. However, the attendees were in an uproar due to the suddenness. Therefore, as a relative, I was forced to go around each table and apologize. But I can't get my daughter's words out of my head. "Hey, where was the coin locker you saw in your dream?" I asked Hannah. "It's a coin locker near the movie theater I went to with my mom and dad before," Hannah replied. So I decided to have my husband rush to the place to check it out. If it was true, I would report it to the police. After 2 hours, when I joined my husband and listened to the story, he said that the baby had already been found when he went to the coin locker. He was protected as an unidentified baby. I felt a sudden heaviness in my body. After all, my daughter's dream came true. I'm really glad she's safe. But if it's Teresa's baby, when did she give birth? Besides, why in a coin locker? There are a lot of things I don't understand. But now that Teresa's having an affair, it has become a reality, and I was really curious. So I contacted people related to Teresa and investigated her past actions as much as I could. Then it was discovered that there was a cruel truth hidden there. I can't forgive Teresa for betraying my precious brother in such a way. I decided to sanction her. Then one day, sometime later, Teresa called me. "It's because of your daughter that the ceremony was ruined. You should compensate for this," she said. We discussed their house with my brother in attendance. Teresa's parents were also supposed to come, but they were absent due to health problems at the last minute. At the appointment time, Alice and I were waiting in the room first. Teresa appeared an hour late without greeting. "Oh, what are you looking so scared of?" she asked, throwing her bag onto the table and popping down heavily onto a chair. In fact, since the wedding riots, she has been living apart from Alice at her friend's house, and the two have not even spoken to each other. That's why my brother seems to be quite angry with Teresa's attitude. "Is it true that what Hannah said? That's ridiculous. It's nonsense." But it seems to be true that there was a baby in the coin locker. "It's just a coincidence. It doesn't matter to me," Teresa said, her face cool, without changing a single expression. "Then why didn't you come home until now?" I asked. "Because Alice's niece ruined my wedding, so I didn't even want to see your face. Besides, I came here today to complain to this person," she said, rolling her eyes and pointing at me, displaying strong resentment. "Though married is once in my life and it was ruined by your daughter, you should reimburse all the expenses and pay compensation for my mental anguish." Teresa slammed her hand on the desk, making a loud noise and shouting in frustration. But I have a lot to say to her. "Do you think I don't know anything? I've been investigating everything, huh?" I said. "Teresa betrayed Alice and had a child with the stripper and then dumped the baby in the locker. It's ridiculous to think what you're going to say. That's a child's delusion," I said. While she tried to remain defiant, her eyes began to dart around and sweat started to beat on her forehead. You got pregnant while Alice was on a long business trip abroad, and you were planning to secretly give birth before my brother returned, but he ended up returning earlier than expected, so you hastily made up an excuse about a trip and stayed away from home for 2 months, I said. When I asked her, her eyes moved even more. Perhaps she gave birth to a baby somewhere during those 2 months. Hey, pause for a moment. Would you care to support us? Like this video and subscribe for more. Now let's dive back into the story. You're so annoying. Where's the evidence that I'm cheating? She asked. I was informed by the maid you fired that Teresa was bringing men into the house, I said. What? That housekeeper talked too much. It turns out Teresa abruptly fired the first maid I hired because she was caught cheating one day. The maid happened to return to retrieve something she forgot and caught her, and a man with bleached hair and flashy attire fooling around. The housekeeper was fired while she was wondering if she should report this to my brother. After suddenly firing the maid and making you change your phone and residence, I thought it was suspicious. But it turns out it was to contact Alice and prevent him from exposing your affair. It seemed like I hit a nerve. Teresa bit her lower lip and suddenly became quiet. And I've met the stripper who is also your cheating partner, I said. What? How did you know about him? She asked. I also heard this from the housekeeper, that when she cleaned up Teresa's room, the stripper's business card and receipts were often missing, so she still remembered the name of the stripper and the club, I said. According to your affair partner, you dated Alice, a high earner, because you wanted money to lavish on strippers, I said. No, that's it. When my younger brother glared at his daughter-in-law, she turned her face away from him, stuttered, and her eyes were glazed. It turns out she continues to have a relationship with the stripper even after she registers with Alice and finally becomes pregnant. Teresa thought that if she could have a child, she could be with her cheating partner, hide, and even give birth. That seems to be the truth of the matter. Teresa shook her shoulders and nodded in surprise at my request. So it was a plan to marry Alice, let things cool down, and then divorce him to claim compensation? Because I wanted to be with him? I asked. So why did you dump the baby in the locker? I asked. I knew how Teresa had an affair, but I just couldn't figure out why she put her baby in a coin locker on the day of the wedding. Then, perhaps because she thought she couldn't get away with it anymore, she reluctantly began to confess. But on the wedding day, when I tried to leave the child with him, he said, I don't want the child. I had no choice if I wanted to be with him, she said. You seem to be misunderstanding something, but the cheating partner has no intention of getting together with you, Teresa, I said. What? On the contrary, it seems that you were quite impatient to have a child, and that you thought that if you said you didn't want a baby, you would give up on the relationship with me, Teresa said. That's a lie. Teresa became teary-eyed as she held her head. I'll tell you, by the way, he's going to quit the stripper job and move abroad with his girlfriend soon. Realizing that she had just been a cash cow who had been quite hooked on the stripper finally collapsed on the spot, utterly defeated, I said. Immediately, however, she leaned over to my brother. I love Alice the most, and you feel the same way I do, don't you? There's so much to be said for insects. Don't be so angry. I've cut off the man, and if the child gets in the way, I'll throw him somewhere else, so forgive me. Teresa clung to Alice's lap, perhaps because she was trying to hold on to my brother, but my brother pulled her away from himself. His eyes were bright red. I don't want to see your face again. I'm divorcing you, he said. Teresa didn't seem to think she would be thrown away, so she opened her mouth and stood there. Then she looked like a demon and came towards me. This time it's because of you that I ended up breaking up with him. What are you going to do about it? It was Alice who knew the truth and chose to divorce, which is to say, Teresa's actions only led to this outcome. I also told her that her parents had told me the truth and that they would cut ties with Teresa today, as per their earnest request. I had informed her parents in advance about everything concerning her. The real reason for his parents' absence was because they fell asleep in shock because of what Teresa had done. How am I going to live if my husband abandons me and my mom and dad abandon me? Teresa cried, walking around the room with her head in her hands and clinging to me. However, I told her the most shocking fact. The police will be coming to you soon. Wow, do I have to go to jail? She asked. On the day of the wedding, I could not tell the police that the baby might be Teresa's child without any evidence. However, after listening to the housekeeper and the stripper, I was sure that the child must be Teresa's. So I told the police, please help me, I only have you." Teresa sat at my feet. However, since my parents passed away, my younger brother and I have been helping each other to overcome difficulties. She betrayed and hurt my precious brother. I can never forgive her for ruining her young life. "Don't get involved with us anymore," I said, glaring sharply at her. She briefly held her breath before breaking into sobs mixed with gasps. Later, Teresa was arrested for putting the baby in the coin locker. I am currently under investigation, but I have decided to divorce my brother and pay $3,000 in alimony. Moreover, because she had paid a large amount of money to the stripper, it was found that she owed $4,000 behind the scenes. Teresa has been abandoned by her parents, has no job, and has no prospect of repaying. My brother is going to go on an overseas assignment again and wants to devote himself to his work without returning to the U.S. for the time being. And my daughter Hannah is as energetic as ever, playing with her friends every day. I was finally pregnant with my second child. The child in the belly was a girl, and I was very happy to see Hannah, who wanted a sister, happy. I'm due to give birth this spring, and I'm looking forward to it. After experiencing the full journey of our story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. How did the story resonate with you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story.